So you're interested in getting into short-term rentals, but you're wondering exactly how much do you need in order to buy a short-term rental? How much do you need to have saved up in your bank account to feel comfortable to pull the plug and put an offer in? Hello and welcome to the Wanderlust host channel. My name is Olivia Tati and I am a short-term rental specialist and world traveler on a mission to inspire you to invest in real estate and travel the world. My goal is to build a community of like-minded millennials who have spent years stifling their creativity, break free, and take control over their lives. In my last video, I already went over the two main things that you need to take into account when figuring out how much you actually need to buy a short-term rental. And those are gonna be your down payment and closing costs. So in order to figure that out, make sure you go back and watch that video because that's actually gonna be the bulk of your costs. And don't worry, I'll make sure to add the video in the caption too. That way you can go back and click on it and watch that part. Trust me, if you haven't already watched it, go back and watch it because you're really going to need to understand how much that part is going to cost you. Now in this video here, we're going to talk about two major hitters you need to take into consideration when thinking about buying a short-term rental property. And those two big hitters are furniture and startup costs. And furniture, pretty self-explanatory, but I'm gonna go more into depth so that you can figure out how much approximately you're gonna need to spend on furniture. And we'll go over the different startup costs that you're gonna have to pay up front that you need to make sure to take into consideration. So, how much does it actually cost to furnish a short-term rental? And the answer is, it depends. I know, not a very satisfying answer, but hear me out. I'm gonna give you more insight so that you can more accurately figure out how much you're gonna be spending on furniture. And the reason I say it depends is because there are so many different factors that go into how much you're actually gonna spend. And that could be the market that you're in, the size of the property, the style of the property, what amenities you're gonna need in order to compete in that market, appliances that you may want to include. Every different property is going to be a little bit different. But that doesn't mean that you still can't estimate, at least for those preliminary numbers. For example, if you're furnishing a small studio or a one-bedroom rental, like a bed, a couch, maybe a tiny dining room table and some decor, and that's about it. But this could go anywhere from like $1,000 to $10,000, depending on which furniture pieces you're picking. On the other hand, if you're furnishing a much larger property, say a 3-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house in the mountains that also has a game room and a hot tub, you're obviously going to be spending a lot more than you would on a tiny 1-bedroom rental. The key is to make sure that the furniture and the appliances and amenities that you're picking make sense in that market. The cost of furnishing a 3-bedroom could cost anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000. Now, it is important to keep in mind that furnishing a short-term rental really is an investment on the property and can drastically increase your ROI. Guests expect certain amenities when booking a vacation rental, and they expect the property to be at a certain standard. So the key thing that you need to also make sure that you're doing is you know who are you targeting to stay at that property. In other words, who's your avatar? And this will help you decide what kind of furniture and how much to spend. One of the main reasons why I say it depends is you could buy a property completely fully furnished that has all of your kitchen tools and has everything that you already need. This is known as a turnkey property. So you could be spending as little as $200 just to spruce the place up a little to get it ready to rent out for guests. You literally might want to just like change some locks or add some technology in so that it integrates with your systems. Personally, for a lot of my items, I like to get them from Amazon. It makes it super easy. You can go in, create a business account, and make a list for each of your properties of what you want to buy. And you can copy and paste those and use them for other properties in the future. This is not an ad, but Amazon Home shockingly has some really good items, even stuff that I put in my own personal home. However, I will say that for some of your major furniture, you may want to go a little bit higher quality on those. For example, buying a couch from Article or Joybird or a bed from Pottery Barn or something like that, just because those are going to be your high-use furniture or high-use items, meaning that they are more susceptible to wear and tear. And you don't want to have to replace those items within the next few months or a year because they are broken or worn out. But not all your furniture has to be expensive. You can go on places like Facebook Marketplace to go and purchase some really good items for a freaking steal. However, note that going on Facebook Marketplace will require a lot more of your time and energy just because you're gonna have to figure out delivery, how to pick it up, and actually scour through the items. But it's a great way to spend less money on your furniture. And nowadays you find really cute stuff on there. You might also just have some old furniture in your house that you're kind of over or want to get rid of, or you're willing to give away to your short-term rental because you don't really need it anymore. And maybe you need your own new couch, for example. Like, I had a ton of furniture from grad school that I'd gotten for my first apartment that had just kind of already grown out. So for my first short-term rental, I actually transferred a lot of my furniture into my short-term rental. And then I bought myself new furniture. So I ended up furnishing a 2-bedroom space for only about $5,000, which really isn't that bad. And I'm not gonna lie, that furniture was pretty darn cute. You know, always been a little bit of an interior decor fashionista here. I also love to decorate my short-term rentals with fake plants just because they add so much life and vibrancy into the space. But just so you know, fake plants are expensive, like way more expensive than you think they're gonna be. And shockingly way more expensive than real plant. A 5-foot fiddle fig tree could cost you anywhere from $70 to $100. I know, insane. Sometimes even more. I think I found one for $150 and I was like, are you kidding me? A small little table plant might cost you like $30. And if you're buying multiple of those, they definitely add up. And then sometimes you still have to go shopping for pots too. So yes, just so you know, fake plants are way more expensive than you're gonna think. Make sure to map it out, write them out, and put the prices in a spreadsheet so you can sum it up to see how much. So far, I found the cheapest plants probably on Amazon, but I also like to go to places like Hobby Lobby, Walmart, Ross, Marshalls, because they also have a lot of really good deals and usually a little better quality than you're gonna find on Amazon. Now, I know everyone wants to know, what's a number? What's something that I can plug into my spreadsheet to help me figure out how much I'm actually going to spend on my short-term rentals? Tell me a number, right? I know, I felt the same way as well when I was just getting started, and then I also realized that it just depends. But I am gonna give you a quick little rule of thumb that I like to use just for estimation purposes. Usually I like to assume anywhere from $10 to $15 per square foot of interior space. And then for the outdoors, it really just depends on the amenities. For example, if I'm getting a hot tub, I know to budget in $8,000. So for example, if I have a 1,500 square foot space, I can multiply that by $10 a square foot. And that would mean that I'm spending $15,000 on furniture on the lower end. But it could be a lot less than that. Like I said, I've spent as little as $8,000, $5,000, $10,000 on furniture, but at least for budgeting purposes, I do like to go on the higher end and then see where I can finagle and find deals here and there to bring the cost down. If I'm looking to going into the more luxury space and I'm looking to get higher quality items, maybe instead I'll multiply that 1,500 feet squared by $15 a square foot, and that would then give me $22,500. So it depends on what market you're in, what kind of property you're going into, and but at least that gives you a framework to help determine how much you could be spending. Really, the best method to do is go through and create a spreadsheet and make a list of all of the furniture that you're buying, and you can put approximate numbers in there for different pieces, just in case you don't know exactly what piece. But for example, if I'm buying a couch, if I am going to put anywhere from $500 to $2,000 in the bucket, because I know that's how much couches cost based off of the kind of couch that I want. But I hope that part at least helps you get started in plugging something into your spreadsheet. And don't forget, if you're finding this information to be useful, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button. I am trying to grow my channel, and the more likes and subscribes I get, the more my videos get pushed out to other folks to help them invest in real estate, travel the world, and live their best freaking lives. The last thing you're gonna need to know when figuring out how much money you're gonna need to purchase a short-term rental is a bucket I like to call miscellaneous costs. These miscellaneous costs are going to be a variety of different costs you're gonna need to pay upfront when you get your property started. Permits are gonna be a big one. Some places don't have any permitting fees. Literally, it's $0 to get your short-term rental up and started, and maybe you just need to send a form into the zoning office. Some places you don't even need to send a form into the zoning office. But make sure before you get under contract that you go and research that market to see what the requirements are. There are certain places where your permit fee can be anywhere from $500 to $1,000, sometimes even more. I always like to call the zoning office and just get it from the expert so I know what I need to do and how much it's gonna cost me. It's also important to know how long that process is gonna take. For some places, you can start short-term renting out right off the bat. Other places, it may take 2 weeks for them to approve your permit. For other places, it can take as long as 3 months, sometimes even longer than that. And you're gonna wanna need to know that, because then you might have holding costs for the property and you need to figure out what you're gonna do with it during those 3 or 4 months before you can actually rent it out as a short-term rental. So I highly suggest you figure that out before you get under contract. The next thing in miscellaneous costs is a deep clean. I always get my properties deep cleaned before I get my first renter in there. And that just makes sure you're starting your property on the right foot, especially since you've probably been in there building furniture, painting, whatever you're doing to get the property ready. It's just nice to make sure that a cleaner has come, cleaned everything, and that your first review is gonna be a glowing one because the property is in tip-top condition. But usually cleaners will charge more for a deep clean than they will for just a turnover in between guests. So make sure to get a quote from them so that you can budget that into your cost. The other thing you need to factor into your miscellaneous costs are supplies. Now, supplies range anywhere from kitchen supplies to bathroom supplies. You're gonna have things like soap, dishwasher soap, detergent for the laundry. You're gonna have dryer sheets. You're gonna have spices, oil, random things in the kitchen, hot tub chemicals if you have a hot tub, you name it. And trust me, those are things that really are going to add up. So you wanna make sure that you factor those in and write a list of exactly what you think you're gonna need and plug those into your spreadsheet so you can total that and factor that into your initial startup cost. Now, something else that factors into those miscellaneous costs are gonna be bills. I know, random, right? But hear me out. Sometimes utilities are gonna have transfer fees in order to transfer from the previous owner to the new owner. Also, if you're starting up accounts in some places, you may have to pay an account startup fee too. For example, our recent property, I had to pay a $200 startup fee for our gas just because we were starting a new account. Depending on how long it also takes you to get your property up and running, you may need to pay a bill or two as well for the month it takes you to get the property up and going. And these different utilities could be anything from Wi-Fi to electricity to gas to water. There's a whole array of them. And depending on what market you're in, it's going to differ slightly. And so those are your main things that you're gonna include in your miscellaneous startup costs. So just to recap, furniture can vary wildly, but for calculations purposes, I usually try to use a $10 to $15 per square foot budget, and you can either go way below that or way above that, depending on how savvy you are. And then you're also gonna have quite a few upfront costs that you're going to need to make sure you include in those miscellaneous startup costs. That's all I have for you, and make sure if you haven't already watched part 1 that you go back and watch that part 1, because those are going to be the bulk of your startup costs that you're going to need to get a short-term rental. I hope you found this information to be useful, and if you did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Put something in the comments. I'd love to hear back from you, and if there's anything else that you want to cover, make sure to write that in the comments or DM me on Instagram. Your girl is now heading to Mexico, so bye.